Good morning. It is April 15th, and yes, we're all running to the post office today with our tax returns. So it's another happy time again, and hopefully you are doing yours online so you don't have to wait in the post office to get a postmark on April 15th. And even better if you're getting a refund this year. But for today, Tony Dattino here with you, the founder of the USA Memory Championship, moving forward with our special 25th year of the USA Memory Competition and talking about the different events that we want to plan. We're looking to have a special event later in the year up at MIT University at the McGovern Brain Institute in Cambridge. So we're working on that, and we have our 25th qualifying event coming up in July, and we have our 25th final event to be done here at Full Sail University, September 28th, here in Winter Park, Florida. So we are actively moving forward with this year's memory championships. In any case, I'm always reading different newsletters. As you know, I get, as I've shared with you in the past, I get a number of newsletters, and here is the current issue. I want to make sure it's the May issue. So, wow, May issue. We're 1 month ahead here of the UCLA Healthy 100 Healthy Years, helping adults lead happier and healthier lives. And I thought they did a really nice job of defining loneliness and isolation and the health impacts. And that's, I think, the important thing for us. I think you know, if you've been with me, I've done a number of sessions on the importance of recognizing isolation and loneliness in people and what the health, what the impacts are to life expectancy. I found this even better, distinguish the difference between the two and the specific health impacts that they have. So I'm going to break this down with you and take you through the sentences here and see if we can give you a message on what we might be able to do with these situations, because it's a little bit scary when you start to see what the health impacts are. And I just want people, my audience, to begin to think of things that they can do that impact their mental health and thus their memories and how they go about living life. So let's start here. Loneliness and isolation have different health impacts. So that's the first thing I thought was interesting. They have different impacts. Being socially isolated carries a much greater physical health risk. So you want to stop that. Socially isolated. So I'm isolated. I don't have a lot of friends. I don't get out and meet with a lot of people. This is the lockdowns we've experienced through the COVID years that we've had to deal with, where we were isolated and kids weren't going to school, we weren't going to restaurants, we weren't going to theme parks, felt like alone, right? But now here comes this other side. But loneliness has a larger impact on mental health related conditions. Think about that. I feel lonely. Now, I could be lonely even if I'm in a group of people. I could feel like, wow, I'm in a group of people, but I feel alone. I don't feel like I'm connected. I don't have a personal connection with anyone. And so loneliness has a larger mental health related condition, according to a study published in the Social Science in Medicine. After reviewing 4 years of health records of 14,000 adults, the researchers found that social isolation was a stronger prediction of early death and physical health problems. Wow. I want to live as long as I can. I want to do all the things that I can to extend my life expectancy. So I'm worried about my heart. I go to my cardiologist. I worry about my mental health. So I'm always doing things for my memory and doing memory exercises and making sure I'm getting sleep and nutrition and all the elements that we talk about that maintain good, sustained, long-term health life. And here comes along, the researchers found social isolation was a stronger prediction of early death and physical health problems. So I'm alone. I don't feel like I can go out and anyone. God, how many people I talk to kids even that feel alone. It's like, whoa. So social isolation, where you're just away from people. Now, loneliness, on the other hand, was strongly associated with mental health conditions. So I feel lonely, such as depression and other mental health conditions. So we went, wow, so now we can be lonely, and I start to maybe lose my memory, I start to lose my ability to communicate and talk. So people who were socially isolated had a 35% greater risk for depression, but people reporting loneliness had more than a 2.5 time risk for depression. Loneliness is the feeling of being alone, regardless of how many social contacts you have. So that is, and boy, I started reading that and I'm saying, okay, wait a minute. Loneliness was more strongly associated with mental health conditions. But now loneliness is the feeling of being alone, regardless of how much social contact you have. So you can have 10 friends. You feel lonely when you are by yourself or you're in a crowd. So that seemed kind of odd. You're in a crowd of people, and maybe you go to a ball game, you go to a ballpark, you go to a play, maybe you go to a movie theater, and there's lots of people around, you're in a crowd, but you feel lonely. Social isolation is the state in which an individual has very few social relationships or roles and infrequent social contact, whether in person or through other means such as online or phone communications. Wow. Let's go over that again. So you're socially isolated is when an individual has few social roles, you don't have many friends or infrequent social contact, whether you're in person or other means such as online or phones. I've talked about that so many times in terms of social isolation, where you just lock yourself down and you're not picking up the phone, maybe you're not getting on Zoom. Now, we saw Zooms during the COVID really really Zoom. But now that we're trying to get back out, do you have people that you can walk with? I see people walking with dogs and walking past in the neighborhood and talking with other residents. People have this, they just want to talk to people. I love talking with people walking with dogs. I mean, you can always have a great conversation and start petting a dog and making sure the dog doesn't bite first. But the notion of getting out, I feel that during those periods of time, I needed to get out and just be on the street and just looking at the birds and listening to the sounds of nature and looking at the pond to see if there's a gator. But I needed to get out where I didn't just feel like I was boxed into a residence. And so I understand now that the isolation is severe. After reviewing, researchers found that social isolation was a stronger predictor of death and health problems, whereas loneliness was strongly associated with mental health conditions such as depression. Let me just go. Let me just grab that. We're going to let that go. Social isolation is a state in which we have few social roles and infrequent social, whether in person or other means. Social connection can be especially important in times of crises. Social connection is important in times of crises, which is why it is more highly related to mortality. Researchers emphasize that if you only address loneliness or just isolation, you haven't done all that you can to improve your health and well-being. They have independent consequences to health, so both are important to address. Let's try that one more time. They emphasize that if you only address loneliness or isolation, you haven't done all you can to improve your health and well-being. And one, you're just going to die. The other is you're just going to be miserable, having a very stressful, depressed life. So what do you do with these? Well, let's learn two things. First of all, one of the things we're teaching in the Memory Institute is how people address what we call a mystery guest, meaning you meet somebody, you don't really know who they are. And what you're trying to do in that scenario, in that specific situation, is you're teaching these people, so how do you look at someone and begin a conversation? How do you begin to talk to someone so that you're not just isolated, you're out into the world. You might go to a drugstore to pick up your meds, you may go to a grocery store, you may be out just taking a walk just for the sun, getting out and getting some fresh air. When we get the sun out, you just want to feel the sun on you. So you move out of the isolation stage. Now you start to see people. Now we want to get away from the loneliness, which is I'm lonely, but I see people, but I still feel alone. And so what do? What questions might you ask people as you meet them? And so we're teaching them, oh, well, you might want to ask them, oh, gee, where do you live? Or I like your dog. Or my goodness, I've seen you walking here. Do you walk out here every day? Or you're meeting someone at a grocery store and you say, gee, I really like the shirt that you have on today. That really, it's kind of bright and cheerful. You look at people and you just think of what question could you ask them that can engage in conversation, which now begins to help you move away from the loneliness stage. So you've moved out of isolation, you've gotten into a public place. You see people in that public place and you now want to converse with them. And as you're conversing with them, you're trying to have safe conversations of learning, gee, I've seen you here before, or bike, I like that shirt, I love that dog. I saw you drive up in that fancy car. Oh, I love your hairstyle. I think that just is really, you look terrific. Oh, those glasses you're wearing, those really just kind of perk up your face. You just want to look at someone and just think of a way of engaging in a conversation that is not threatening, is not antagonistic, but brings a conversation to the table that can be fun, educational, and engaging to people. And just meeting one another, and boy, it's amazing how you can make friends. So at the Memory Institute, we're teaching many of the folks in the Institute that do feel isolated. They feel a little bit like, oh God, something not right with me, or there's something I don't remember. And we're teaching them, how do you engage with people and make it fun? And we're learning a whole lot of fun skills in the process of doing that, and ways of having fun conversations. And more importantly, we're learning how do we stay alive as long as we possibly physically can, and how do we remain, while we are alive, how do we have it be joyful and pleasant? And with that, it is time to move on to my day, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday. I hope this lesson has at least now helped you differentiate the isolation. I just sit in my house and I'm isolated from the world, to I'm out in the world and I see people, but I feel lonely because I don't know how to engage in conversation. I don't know how to meet people. I feel like I'm an introvert. And we can learn not to be a total extrovert, but learn how to have enjoyable conversations with people, which benefit our overall mental health, physical health, and life expectancy.